You know, one of the things that really annoys me is when people act like faith and fear don't coexist. Like, two things can't be true. Like, you can't be scared and have faith at the same time. As if real faith means walking around with this unshakable confidence, never doubting, never trembling, never questioning. And I don't buy it because that's not what I see in the Bible. And it's definitely not what I've lived. So today, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the myth that faith means fearlessness and what it actually looks like to do it scared. Hey y'all, I'm Senecca, and this is Exhaled Hope. I believe there's this misconception that in order to be a Christian, you can't be afraid. That you must walk around every day oozing confidence and surety that everything is going to be wonderful, when in reality, we don't know what it will be. We hope it will, we trust it will, but life really has no guarantees. And the danger of trying to live like you're never afraid is that it causes us to perform instead of being honest about where we are. I don't know how many times someone has told me that do not fear is written in the Bible 365 times. And that could be true. But there will still be some days when we hold a little bit or a lot of bit of fear. And that doesn't mean that our faith is broken. I'll explain it this way. By definition, faith means complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And then the Bible defines it as the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. In other words, you're trusting in something or someone that you can't prove without question. On the other hand, fear is this unpleasant, often very strong emotion caused by anticipation or awareness of danger. So the question really is, how can we have complete confidence that everything is going to work out and also be scared about how or if things are going to work out? Can those two things exist in the same space, in the same heart, at the same time? And I'm saying yes. I think that they can. And I think the Bible also shows us that they do. Let's look at a gentleman named Moses. God spoke to him audibly. Let that sit for a moment. He heard God clearly. Not like how we say, girl, I feel like the Lord is saying. Girl, I heard the Lord say, and really that's just our inner self talking to us, telling us what we want to hear. But no, Moses heard God audibly, and he was given direction and answers to all his inquiries about how, who, and what. And God even reassured him by showing Moses how he'd provide proof that God had sent him. But Moses was still scared. And let's be clear, I want to be fair to Moses. His assignment was no small thing. Leading 10 people is hard, but trying to move over 600,000 different attitudes, opinions, and personalities out of Egypt, the only place they'd ever known, that gave him plenty of reason to have a little bit of fear. And he feared whether he had what he needed for the assignment. Moses had a speech impediment, which made him feel less qualified. He even suggested sending his brother instead of himself. That fueled even more fear, like, yo, I'm not qualified. Send my brother. He can go and handle it for you, God. I can't do it. But even while being scared, he moved in faith. He did the assignment while his hands trembled, and I'm sure his voice shook a little bit. He did it scared. Okay, so that was Moses. Let me give you a different one. What about Esther? She was terrified when she had to approach the king uninvited, an act by itself that could have gotten her killed. The law was clear. You don't just walk into the king's presence without being summoned. People died for less than that. But her people were facing genocide, and she was the only one in position to do something about it. So what did she do? She fasted, she prayed, she prepared, and then she said those words that we've heard before. If you've been in anybody's church and talked about Esther, you heard, if I perish, I perish. That wasn't confidence. That was courage in the presence of fear. That's faith saying, I'm terrified, but I'm going anyway because this is bigger than my comfort. She did it scared. And let's not forget about Jesus' closest circle. Even the ones who walked with him day and night, saw him do miracles, listened to his teaching, they showed fear too. There's the story about the disciples being on the boat. You might have heard it. These men are experienced fishermen, by the way. They know the water. They know how to deal with the storm. But a sudden, violent storm approaches. And guess what? They were afraid. Some say of drowning. But so much so that they go and they wake Jesus up, who was somehow sleeping through the whole thing. And even those who walked with him daily still showed fear. But it didn't mean that they didn't have faith. There's this verse in Psalm 56, verse 3, that captures this tension so perfectly. It just says, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. When I am afraid. Not if, when. The psalmist isn't pretending fear doesn't exist. He's not performing some version of a superhuman faith. He's saying, fear is here. It's real. It's even loud. But I'm choosing to put my trust in God anyway. That's what doing it scared looks like. For the past 3 years or so, my motto has been, do it scared. Almost 18 months ago now, I left a 23-and-a-half-year career in corporate America to become an entrepreneur. I left what was comfortable and familiar to pursue what I know God has called me to do. And I will tell you, I battle fear constantly. The fear of not being enough, the fear of it all failing, the fear of not getting it right, the fear of disappointing or hurting my family. And honestly, I'm even fearful of success in some ways. But my faith in the one who sent me is so much greater than the fear I have. I can do it scared because I know that with God, I can't and won't fail. My fears exist, but my faith is so much bigger. There are some days I sit at this desk and I say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it anyway. Not because I'm wild and reckless, and not because I'm not thinking through my decisions, but because I know I don't know everything. And I have to keep moving my feet anyway. Faith is continuing to move, even when you can't see the full path, because we trust who created it. Here's what I've learned. Waiting for the fear to leave is just a tactic to procrastinate. Because fear might never fully leave, not until we're on the other side of the thing we're afraid of. So instead of waiting for it to go away, we have to let God in to where we are, fearful. Let him show you, like he showed Moses, how he will be there with you every step of the way. Maybe not turning staffs into snakes, but maybe he'll send resources to fill in the areas you don't fully understand. Maybe he'll open doors you didn't even know existed. Maybe he'll give you peace in the middle of the storm, even while the waves are still crashing. Being a Christ follower doesn't wave a magic wand to make our natural feelings dissipate into the air. Yes, the Bible says, fear not a lot, because God already knew we would be scared. But we don't have to stay scared. The things that I was afraid of and scared about when I first left my career don't even faze me now, because I kept going anyway. I did it scared, and eventually, as I allowed God to lead, my fears lessened until they were gone. Now I have new fears that he's walking me through. Fear doesn't have to last forever, but it will handicap us if we don't push our faith in front of our fears. So let me leave you with this. Do it scared. Do it scared. One day at a time. Write one page of your new book while scared. Apply for the new position while scared. Take the next step in starting your business while scared. Have that hard conversation while you're still scared. Set the boundary while you're scared. Step into what God is calling you to while you're scared. And here's the other thing. Tell your community what scares you. Don't perform. Don't pretend. Let people in. Let them speak into you and hold you accountable. Let them remind you who God is when your fear gets loud. Because you were never meant to be brave by yourself. When you are afraid, and you will be, because we're human, and this life is hard, and following God isn't always comfortable, but your trust in Him is. Not because the fear will magically disappear, but because He's already there in the middle of it saying, I've got you. Let's do this together. You don't have to wait until you're not afraid. You just have to decide that fear doesn't get the final say. God does. So go ahead. Go ahead, friend. Do it scared. Your faith doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be present. And God, He'll meet you right there. Thanks for being here, and thank you for listening. This is Exhaled Hope.